one of the really important things for us is we are a really data-driven team, and that's not just the case of making decisions off of it, but also sharing that transparently throughout our team. And that goes from the very first conversation we have with a landlord or a tenant about, some new situation they're trying to, make easier or solve or whatever it might be, and kind of combining all of that data and making our decisions over how we prioritize things, all the way through to how we build it and why we build it, and A/B testing that with our landlords and our tenants to decide the right way to build things. I think there's almost not enough emphasis in the world on not just building something, but building it the right way, in a way that actually serves everyone's needs. And so we have a huge focus on using data, sharing data as much as possible within our team to make better decisions, to have alignment as a team, and it makes it a lot more fun.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we talk about a data-driven culture. When your culture is really clear about their expectations, they're looking at the data, looking for the next place to innovate, or maybe it's the next feature that you add, you will have a much better chance to create growth and success in your company. Now, I happen to be biased on this. I'm very data-driven myself. I love to collect information. That's one reason why I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews, close to 1,000 of CEOs about their principles of leadership and culture that drive growth. And I'm doing the math in my head, or the calculus of what does it take to grow fast companies. All that to be said is a data-driven culture is one where the people understand the data that drives us forward, and we're tracking it and we're transparent about this across the culture. Now, when you do this for yourself, you're probably going to run into a few challenges. So I've got Ryan Barone is really an incredible CEO of RentRedi. RentRedi is a platform for landlords to automate and streamline their operations. And it's a SaaS company. They've grown over 2,000%. They were number 180 on the Inc. 2024 list with 50 employees. And data-driven culture was what made them successful, was what got him here. And we go through and unpack that for you. We talk about what is it, what are they tracking, and how do they get people to really look at the data of their customers and the impact that those decisions have, but it's all from a data-driven perspective. So a data-driven culture is today's topic. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We work with companies that have a huge opportunity on the horizon. And if you're facing headwinds or you're facing a new opportunity in front of you, then you want to make sure that you have full alignment behind you. You want to make sure that you have the team that you can count on, that you can empower, that you can hold accountable, that you can lead and develop to that next level. You want to make sure your executive leadership team is in alignment with the vision of the company and driving forward. Now, what I found is sometimes these are less than optimal, which is a nice way to put it, is they're not really aligned the way they want them to be. And you want to make sure that your company is positioned for this new opportunity. So if you're curious about the work we do, all you have to do is send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. What we'll do inside that conversation is I'll use the tools I've been using for the last 12 years helping fast growth companies. I will give you some diagnosis and prescription for what your blind spots are that are holding you back, because every company has them. My company has them, and your company does too. And many times we're so emotionally attached and we're so inside the issues that we can't see it for ourselves. I'm trained to do this. I look at the patterns and the data behind it, and I want to help you. If you're curious about that, all you have to do is sign up for a quick conversation with me. We will customize and really dive into this and allow you to prioritize what's next for your company. Identify the blind spots. All that to be said, all you have to do is have the courage to send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. Say you heard me on the podcast and you want to talk about growing your business. Just let me know. When you do that, I promise not to sell you. I promise to just build a relationship and give as much as I can, because you're listening to the show. And I'd love for you to have the courage to do that. Now, here's the interview with Ryan. Ryan, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here, Gene. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to be here. I can feel your energy as we get started on this topic. Tell me a little bit about your company, RentRedi.
Yeah, so RentRedi is property management software that is specifically designed for independent landlords, so individuals that typically have a full-time job and own and operate some properties on the side. And that's their way to put a kid through college or retire early or just have a good, better life. And so we're really the software that enables them to automate as much of the manual tasks of actually managing that property, like rent collection and listings and finding tenants, screening them, handling any maintenance, and so on. And so it's been a joy getting to build a platform that serves both that specific independent landlord and create a great portal and app for all of their tenants to use as well.
Why did you choose this market?
So I actually got started trying to just solve my own problem as a tenant. It was never even intended to be a business idea or anything. I was going to school in New York City here. I studied economics and math, minor in computer science at Pace University. And I had gotten my first internship at Goldman Sachs, which is walking distance from Pace in the financial district. And I thought it was going to be this big moment, moving out of dorms, getting my first apartment. I thought it would be this great, easy, amazing experience. And I was actually able to find an apartment I loved. But once I went to actually rent it, all of the documents they needed, I couldn't get together in time. I had 2 roommates. We all had guarantors. We ended up missing out on the apartment we wanted. I ended up living about 100 blocks from my job that summer, and it was a good lesson for me of be prepared when you show up to view your unit and apply. But it also made me leave that experience feeling like there should have been an easier way for me to apply to apartments. And so I initially developed our iOS and Android apps for myself and friends to apply to apartments as tenants more easily. And I just so happened to be interacting with these independent landlords who said, "Hey, Ryan, it's way more than just applications. It's rent collection and screening and all of these other things." And it really became this extremely collaborative process where I fell in love with building this platform for landlords and their tenants. And it grew from what was initially really tenant-focused applications to really the most end-to-end platform for independent landlords now.
I love it. I have 26 properties myself. My wife is the primary lead on that. I'm really just an investor. I'm very passive, but she is a professional real estate professional. I guess that's where you would describe that. So we use the tax advantages of real estate, and it's a tough market. Like property management is not easy. So good on you for helping people automate and solve some of these things that are very complex, and it's tough.
Thank you. No, it's been a joy. I mean, you said it right. It is not an easy thing, and in a lot of cases, it's your whole life savings that you've put into this, and ultimately, if that works well, you have an opportunity to grow and give yourself more financial freedom to do what you want. And if it doesn't work well, it goes in the opposite direction. So it is really rewarding to work with this group. It is a big reason we've stayed focused on this group because there's no better feeling than someone coming on and 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years in, coming back and saying, "I can't tell you how much better it's been using the platform versus doing everything on pen and paper and spreadsheets." And that really is what we heard 9 years ago when I was starting RentRedi, and today, where largely, if you are one of these independent landlords, it's been this kind of historical kind of cast aside of the independent landlord and told, if you're not this massive property manager, go use pen and paper and spreadsheets. And it puts you in a really disadvantaged position that we feel like you shouldn't really have to be in.
I love what you're doing, and I could talk to you all day long about the ins and outs of this and the technology behind it. But we came here not to talk about that. We talk about typically leadership and culture. And I know that you have about 50 employees, about 180 on the Inc. list this past year, and over 2,000% growth in the 3-year run. What is behind that? Like, if you had to describe your culture or your leadership, what is behind that level of growth?
Yeah, I think one of the really important things for us is we are a really data-driven team, and that's not just the case of making decisions off of it, but also sharing that transparently throughout our team. And that goes from the very first conversation we have with a landlord or a tenant about some new situation they're trying to make easier or solve or whatever it might be, and kind of combining all of that data and making our decisions over how we prioritize things, all the way through to how we build it and why we build it, and A/B testing that with our landlords and our tenants to decide the right way to build things. I think there's almost not enough emphasis in the world on not just building something, but building it the right way, in a way that actually serves everyone's needs. And so we have a huge focus on using data, sharing data as much as possible within our team to make better decisions, to have alignment as a team. And it makes it a lot more fun because everybody understands what decisions we're making, why we're making those decisions, how we focus on the right things, and ultimately it helps us grow faster.
Now, I'm an engineer by education. I love spreadsheets. Data is kind of my jam. So I love to dive into some aspects of this. Having a data-driven culture, what type of data are you looking at culture-wise as your company grows?
Yeah. So from a culture standpoint, I think it is it's a combination of two things, right? We have our team goals, right? The things we're trying to achieve working all together. And then those are very measurable very often, right? So that it might be for different businesses, revenue or new client growth or retention of different things or adoption of different things. Those really are shared transparently from day one with different parts of the business or different people within the business. On the flip side of that, there's the individual goals, which I think can't be emphasized enough. One of the most important things that is covered in every single interview that we do with every single person that joins our team is what they genuinely want by joining RentRedi. And I think that is a little bit less pure data driven, but it is incredibly important because genuinely everybody that joins our team is trying to accomplish something, whether it's in a year or 2 years or 4 or 5. And I think that is the right way to think about it as a business, is to think about what's that person's individual goal they're trying to achieve. How does that align with your company goals, those measurable goals that you're creating? And then try to create some sort of leading indicators between those to help guide you in the right direction.
Now, Ryan's been talking about goals. He talked about the team goals or the company goals, and he talked about individual goals. I want to make sure that I put this concept inside your mind. An ideal company will take the time to not only talk about the company goals and the team goals, but they will get to an individual level with each person. Now, I know you may have hundreds of people, so this is something your manager should be doing on a regular basis, is taking time to look at what those individuals want. Now, the exercise isn't just about them wanting to be a martial arts champion or to learn a new language or whatnot. Those are personal goals, but you want to do that with them. But you also want to pull out their professional goals at an individual level so that you can find alignment between not only what they want, but what the team wants and what the company wants. And when you do that, you have what I call shared goals. This concept of shared goals allows people to know that you are tuned into this, that you are holding them accountable to their own growth, and that when you do this over and over and over, people will learn to step up. They will learn to grow and put the intention and the work it is into each of those things. And they're for the good of not just themselves. That gives them a real sense of ownership, but it's for the team and for the company. And that shared goal is something that a lot of managers just aren't doing. I share this with you because it's a tool that you can use. It's absolutely free to help your culture be stronger and for your performance in your company to be even better. Back to Ryan. When you think about being data-driven culture, are you guys looking at KPIs for the culture? I don't know what aspects of that, but I'm just kind of curious, how far do you take it?
Yeah. For us, the KPIs are more about how we're running the business itself. And I think it drives a lot of the discussion in our meetings and decision making. It's less, I would say, metrics about the culture, so much as focus on the decisions we're making with that data.
What does it do for the team as you guys have adopted this data-driven aspect? Because not everybody's driven by data like you and I.
Yeah. I think the biggest focus that we have is that it's about transparency and the why behind decisions. I think most people, even if they're not big data fans like us, ultimately like knowing why they're being asked to do something, or why we've decided to do this thing, or why they should even decide to make this decision. And I think there's nothing more powerful than when you join the team and the decision process, that the data behind the decisions we're making is shared with you from day one. And then as you grow with the team and you become the one that's actually deciding those things and teaching that next person that's coming on, you feel confident in that decision-making process because it's been shared with you from the very beginning. And also the people that came before you that are a part of that are trusting of you to make those decisions because they know we all have the same type of approach for how we're making those choices.
Ryan, looking at you for the very first time on video, I know we've done some research to be able to put you on the show because we don't just take anyone. You're a
Mhm.
young leader. Where do you feel like you get your leadership ideas and principles from?
Oh, everywhere. I think it's a constant learning experience. I think I've I've been blessed to have a great family that has supported me from day one for sure. I think my mom's side of the family had a produce business growing up, and I think that was fun to go to work with her, see how that all worked. My dad actually, when I told him, "Hey, I'm leaving my Wall Street job and starting this business," I think most parents are lucky if they say, "Good luck, we believe in you." I was lucky enough to convince him to do it with me, so he's worked on RentRedi with me for the past 7 years or so, which has been amazing. I think at the same time, we've had some great investors along the way that honestly have given me fantastic advice about uh, who to hire, experience level to hire at different periods. And also, to be honest, I still draw a lot from. I played a lot of basketball growing up, so to all the basketball coaches I've had, I feel like I've learned a lot from them that I feel like applies to life and business.
Let's get a little bit more specific with this. You've grown this company at an astronomical pace for most businesses,
Thank you.
2,000% in 3 years, and still growing. How has your leadership changed? Because in the beginning, you have a smaller number of people and now you have 50 people. Can you think of
Yeah.
some inflection points around your leadership?
Definitely. Yeah. I think the very early days, it was just like lock yourself in my case, I was living in a studio apartment with my sister, and I was working at my full-time job, coming home at night, building RentRedi. Eventually that computer screen gets really annoying at like 2 a.m. when someone's working on that. So I went out to the stairwell. So in the early days, it was like lock myself in a stairwell and program RentRedi. Eventually that grew, and we brought on, we raised our first round from actually landlords on our platform that said, "Hey, we think this could, help more people." And that quickly then led into a venture round where we brought on about 6 people outside of myself and my co-founder. And so that was really the first time where I had to say, okay, it's not me directly doing everything, right? That someone is handling portions of the business, but it's still extremely hands-on. I was still writing a lot of our code at that point, but certainly less, right? Like we brought on our first mobile engineer, we brought on our first full stack engineer, we brought on Kelly, who's still our head of growth today, that was running all of our ad side of things. So it was the first shift towards, okay, you're doing a little bit, but you're also setting up more of these metrics to understand, are we doing well? Are we doing as well as we want to be doing, or what should we be changing? And then a little bit later on, I think really when we did our Series A with K1 was a big moment as well. We were still only about 11 people on the team at the time. We're over 50 now. That was I felt like a big turning point as well, going a step quite a bit further from individually contributing and more helping the team contribute and figuring out which people were going to be the leaders within the team, within their kind of pods, almost their mini startup within the startup. And I think that continues as we grow. I think it is still really important to have. You talked about a little bit in the trenches when we were just chatting before we jumped on. I do very much believe you have to always stay a bit in the trenches, or you just won't know what's going on enough to make the right decision. But it is constantly a shift from being the one to physically go do the thing, and a little bit more be there with them, help the team do it, but a little more oversight.
I asked Ryan about his leadership inflection points. One of the things I wanted to highlight here is every leader goes through inflection points, and there's more on the horizon. Even though you've grown a lot, you've probably been resilient and had the grit to rise, with everything that you faced. There's something else that's going to cause you to grow. Now, many times is a blind spot. I have my blind spots, you have your blind spots, but you want to make sure that you accept that being the CEO of a company, being a top leader of any company, requires you to evolve. Because what worked when you had 10 employees doesn't work when you have 100. And what worked when you have 100 employees doesn't work when you have 1,000. There's different inflection points for every kind of business, and it depends on your leadership skills behind this. But just know that you're going to evolve. Your inflection points are going to be milestones that allow you to not only see where you've come from, but to know that what's ahead of you is requiring you to be a better leader, requiring you to be a leader that your team wants to follow, and it requires you to be ahead of the growth curve of the company. Now, if you're doing that well, then great. But if there's an opportunity for us to help you and serve you, make sure you reach out to me, Gene@genehammett.com. I'd love to help you. Back to Ryan. Sounds like what you're describing is there's a transition that we all go through building businesses from founder to CEO. And it's hard because you're so used to doing it, making the decisions. And now you're expected to empower the people around you and delegate and hold them accountable. And it's a very different work dynamic when you're operating as a CEO with 50 employees. When you think about, what's moving forward with your own, business as you scale, what do you feel like is going to make you guys continue to be successful from a leadership or culture perspective?
Yeah. So I very much believe that what's helped us, one of the most important things that's helped us grow, whether it's the very beginning or over that 3-year stretch you're talking about and today going forward, is that so much of our business is driven off of customer feedback, the conversations we have with them, and then converting that into some measurable way that we take action. One of my favorite books talks about this iterative feedback loop, 0 to 1. Where you're constantly collecting information and making a change, measuring that and iterating. And I think that very much is true. But as we scale from where we are today at 50 to 250 or 500 and beyond, it's really about kind of helping that next group be as self-sufficient, successful as that same 6 of us were in our first, we work in downtown Manhattan pre-COVID, and enabling that group to make their own decisions based on data successfully in those conversations they're having with customers.
Ryan, I appreciate you being here. I want to have one more question for you. And I didn't prep you ahead of time on this. Maybe I should have, but I've written a book called How to Have Tough Conversations. Anyone watching the video, you can see the neon behind me. In your journey of being the CEO of this fast growth company, have you had to have tough conversations? And what is one piece of advice you would give to others when they have to have a tough conversation?
Yeah, I definitely have had to have tough conversations. I think one of the most important things is a lot of tough conversations come from, in some shape or form, your line of thinking is over here and the other person's line of thinking is over here, right? Whether that's expectations with an employee, whether that's where you're hoping to grow and either exceeding that or not, whether that's personal relationships, whatever it might be. I think in any case, you can generalize it to you're in one place here, the other person's in one place there. I think very often, if you backtrace enough, you do agree on something. And if you can start there and find the point, that very first point of divergence between that, more often than not, you can actually figure out whatever you're trying to accomplish with each other. And so I very much believe it's kind of starting the conversation with what you both believe in, stating your goal up front so everyone's together, and quite often you want the same thing, right? Like even when there's tough conversations, you're all trying genuinely to achieve the same thing, and then finding that point. And sometimes maybe you're right, maybe you will end up where you originally started, but you've helped guide them down your path. Sometimes you're wrong, and they'll help guide you down theirs. And sometimes there's a third option. Sometimes it's actually somewhere in the middle, and when you both talk about that kind of point where you started diverging, you end up finding that there was actually something both of you missed. And when you shared that information, it actually made it a lot easier to find the right path forward.
I really appreciate you letting me play there a little bit, because I did not give you a heads up on this, but I think you nailed it.
No worries.
You framed it as one thinking is over here and one's over there. My words on that was, we're just out of alignment. And what your suggestion behind this is find the time when you guys did agree on that aspect and look at it together and figure out, where did we miss? Was it me? Was it you? It's a curiosity really helps. And that's the first place you start with a tough conversation. I will remind anyone who hasn't already read the book on how to have tough conversations. Ryan, I really appreciate you being here, sharing about your journey of leadership and culture as your company has scaled to an astronomical place. And thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me, Gene.
Wow, what a great interview. I love talking about a data-driven culture and what that really means for this. I have a data-driven culture. Many of my clients are successful because they're data-driven, and I want to make sure that you understood the value of this today. Hopefully it was helpful to you. We dived into this with Ryan. When you are really thinking about growing your business and you want support, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to help you. Gene@genehammett.com. And when you think of growth and think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, through courage. We'll see you next time.